I'm Hannah.
And I'm Ina.
We're student reporters from the News Group.
Today we're here at ASIC on behalf of the Australian Education Times to interview the Chairman of Australian Securities and Investment Commission ASIC, Greg Medcraft.
He has been the chairman since 2011 and has a lot of experience in investment banking.
Join us as we go learn more about Mr. Medcraft. He was once an executive director, then a chief executive officer, and now a successful chairman of the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. With over 30 years of experience in investment banking, we would like to welcome the one and only Greg Medcraft. Hello and welcome to the Australian Education Times. We are very excited to hear about your journey so far and how you came to become CEO.
Tell us about your journey from school to university and how you ended up as the chairman of ASIC today.
Well, Hannah, I started life at high school and HSC in Melbourne, and then I went to Melbourne University where I got a commerce degree. And in fact, when I started out, I wasn't sure what I was going to really do. I knew I was going to do something in business, which I liked, because I studied economics and accounting and legal studies, so I always liked those areas. So I started commerce, and then after commerce I became a chartered accountant for 3 years. And when I was a chartered accountant, one of the things I focused on was investment banking audit. And then I moved into investment banking. And I was in investment banking for nearly 30 years around the world. And then I retired. And the last thing I ever thought I would be doing was being a regulator until I got approached and after the crisis, and it was a very interesting time to become a regulator. So I went from being regulated to being the regulator. So some people say I was a poacher turned gamekeeper. So, and it's been very interesting actually. So that's how I got where I was.
You've travelled quite a lot over the years. Do you believe travelling is important in gaining life experience and getting ahead? Why?
Look, I think the benefit of travel is that I think it opens up your mind, that you know, not everyone has the same way of achieving things, and you know, I find travel really useful for seeing new ways of doing things and talking to people, getting a different view from your own country, so seeing different cultures, and then trying to connect the dots and think, well, if you can do this in this country, why couldn't we do that in our country? So it's a really great. It's really important to travel so that you can actually get different ideas in terms of how you might do things.
What motivated you to pursue your degree in commerce?
Oh well, as I said earlier, it was very much because I had an interest in business, and you know, I was going to do law or commerce. In fact, I started doing law and commerce, but then I decided that I was too keen to get out and make money, so I did commerce. So, but I did end up going back and doing a bit of law. But you know, I saw those as two useful entrees into business. So, and I always had an interest in actually doing business and making money.
What are the biggest strengths you believe everyone should have in order to succeed?
Well, look, I think the most important thing is never give up. Just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean to say it can't be done. And you've actually, my motto is you start making progress where other people stop, and that's really important. I think the other thing too is to value what you have, and I think that's quite important. That you know, sometimes achievement is a long road, and you've got to value what you have and what you have achieved, and then that actually gives you confidence to move the next step. So it is sort of a series of baby steps in terms of achieving stuff. I think the second thing is to, I think listening to people is really important, and I think you listen and learn. Listening is very, very important in terms of that, of achieving things. And the other thing is having a clear strategy, communicating well, and working as a team. That's quite important. So they're my ways of success.
What's your secret to maintaining family life while still gaining a reputation as a successful chairman?
Well, that's a challenge for a lot of busy people, is keeping a balance between doing things in the community, in having an active career, and then having a family. And I think you've got to constantly balance that. But I've always sort of said, you've got to put your family first, because somebody said to me once, when you're old and sitting in an old age people home, probably people in your career are probably not going to care too much about you. It's probably going to be your family. So I think you've always got to remember that family comes first. And if you have to sort of make a decision between the two, you've probably always got to favour the family. It's an important challenge that you've got to try and keep that balance.
What
If
advice?
that's not working, if the family's not working, other things don't work. So that's why it's important to keep the balance.
What advice do you have for parents and students on smart investment for education?
Oh, look, I think investment in education is critical to what you want to do, and on that respect, on our Money Smart program, we do provide a lot of information about savings, for things like education. But I believe the reason that I'm where I am today fundamentally comes down to having had an opportunity to have a good education. I mean, education is the key to improving your standard of living. It's really important.
Tell us a bit about Money Smart, ASIC's financial literacy initiative for young people. How can this help me?
Well, Money Smart should be able to help you and others in terms of giving you the tools if you're interested in either saving or investment or understanding about about money. And we think about it, we all start dealing with money at a very early age. So Money Smart, particularly, for example, we have a thing called Money Smart Town, which my 10-year-old daughter loves playing on, and I don't know whether you played on it, but it actually has you earning an income and spending that income, and so it gives you really good examples of how the sort of disciplines you need to learn about managing money. And then also we've got Money Smart Teaching, which is really important, which you may have done at your school, I don't know, but that we actually are embedding the teaching of learning about financial literacy in the schools, and through Money Smart Teaching, I think we now have it taught. There are 10,000 schools throughout Australia. I think we have it rolled out in about 30% of the schools in Australia, and it's available to teachers, but also on our Money Smart website.
Do you think money management and budgeting skills should be included as a curriculum in schools?
Yeah, look, I think it's critical because, look, at the end of the day, once you go to work, the most important thing you have to do is to manage a budget. So having the right skills, not being afraid about how you might manage money is critical. And I think it's an essential life skill. So having it embedded, because in the national curriculum, I think is a really good idea in terms of it just becomes part of what you do. So if you're learning mathematics, having it built into concepts of sort of day-to-day spending of money is a good idea. Or if you're learning about history and you're building into that, learning about perhaps money in the past, I think it's a good thing.
A lot of young students would like to be like you someday. If you could be anyone else in the world for a day, who would it be and why?
Gee, I thought about that. Actually, I quite like being who I am, actually, which is probably a good thing. But one person I think that is really interesting in history and probably embeds a lot of the values that I mentioned before is somebody like Leonardo da Vinci, because what he was, when you think about it, in the Middle Ages, he's often called the Renaissance man because he was so innovative, he was so creative. If you think about the guy, what he was probably regarded as one of the world's best artists, but then he did architecture, he did technology, and he wasn't afraid to actually explore new areas, and I think that's how we progress. Is we confront challenges, we keep moving on and just pushing the boundaries, and I think that's quite an interesting thing. If you think about somebody like him, he was quite an interesting fellow.
You've had 30 years of experience in the real world. What advice would you give to current students who also want to succeed like you?
Look, I think on that thing, I'd say in the future, I think the future of work, I think what's really important is to be creative and entrepreneurial because the world is changing very fast. But you know what you can't replace with machine-made decisions is creativity. I mean, creativity is something that remains with human beings. So also is being able to deal with other human beings. So interpersonal skills are really important. So what is interesting, I think, for the future in terms of jobs is, it's quite interesting. Physical jobs are quite good, I mean, for the future because if you think about trades, you often can't replace a lot of physical jobs. So I just think creativity and being entrepreneurial is important. The other thing that's important for the future is having lifelong learning. The wonderful thing I love about it is I've never stopped learning. And I think you've just got to keep learning, and also you've got to be flexible. So I think that's quite important. But most importantly, probably, is you've actually got to really love what you do. And if you have a passion about something, that's probably going to be the most important driver to what you do. I was watching a show about Bill Gates last night, the person behind Microsoft, and apparently one of the things about him, what drove him, when people were questioning about Windows and what he did back in the 90s, he was just apparently had such a passion for what he did and was so much believed in what he did that actually drove him to succeed. And I think that's really important. You've just got to have a passion, and you've got to work hard and not give up. As I said before, you make progress when others stop, and that's a really important thing.
On behalf of Australian Education Times, thank you for taking the time out to talk to us today. Your story has been very inspiring to us, and I'm sure it will also be very inspiring to all our readers. Once again, thank you for your time. It has been a pleasure meeting you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Anya, and also Hannah. Thank you very much. All the best in your future careers and to all those that I'm talking to.